Hey guys, tonight we're curling up somewhere deep, dark, and probably a little damp. Picture it, a cavernous hollow carved by time and water, its edges crusted with frost, its air carrying that faint mineral tang of wet stone and ash. You crouch near a smouldering fire whose light trembles across the cave walls, revealing the ghosts of soot and ancient handprints. The wind outside howls like some forgotten language, and the cold presses in with a steady, relentless patience. You pull a fur tighter around your shoulders and realize you probably wouldn't survive this first hour. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into that first winter cave, not as an archaeologist, not as a tourist with a flashlight, but as someone whose breath fogs in the frigid air. The snow outside is deep enough to swallow your ankles, and the landscape has gone silent except for the occasional crack of distant ice. There's no electricity, no heater humming behind you. What warmth you have, you make yourself. The cave feels alive. The stone amplifies every sound, the drip of melting frost from a stalactite, the slow exhale of fire, the faint rustle of fur as someone shifts in sleep. The fire pit at the center, that's your lifeline. Without it, the cold would creep in through the floor and gnaw its way up your bones. Archaeologists call these first fires hearths of necessity, but you just call them survival. Charred bones found in caves like Lazaret in France and Shanadar in Iraq tell us early humans huddled around flames here over 100,000 years ago, not to cook a meal, not only, at least, but to stay alive through endless, starless winters. You crouch near the flames, watching sparks leap upward, vanishing into the smoky gloom. Someone has arranged stones around the pit, maybe to reflect heat, or keep embers from rolling into furs. It's primitive interior design, sure, but effective. There's comfort in the flicker, that hypnotic rhythm of light and shadow that tricks your brain into thinking you're safe. For a moment, you almost believe it. Historians still argue whether these winter fires were kept burning day and night, or allowed to die out with dawn. If they were never allowed to go cold, someone had to stay up, feeding it, guarding it, whispering to it as though it were alive. Imagine that, drawing the night shift in a world without clocks, just watching coals dim and flare, while the rest of your clan snores softly, dreaming of summer. You can tell who slept nearest the fire: the elderly, the very young, the ones the group couldn't afford to lose. They'd curl closest to the warmth, cocooned in hides, while stronger bodies formed a perimeter. Safety wasn't just about temperature, it was about teeth. Wolves, big cats, and bears prowled the snowy dark, drawn to heat and the scent of cooked meat. The cave mouth wasn't a wall, it was an invitation. That's why the fire burned not deep inside, but close enough to guard the threshold. Early humans balanced heat and defense with eerie precision. You drag a stick through the coals and watch sparks fly. They remind you of stars, except these are stars you can control. A sky inverted, contained within stone. It's strange to think that fire wasn't just technology, it was psychology. The warmth told your ancient mind that you belonged here. The orange light said, "This is home." Anthropologists call this the domestication of fire, but you might call it the moment the night stopped feeling infinite. Still, smoke was a problem. The cave's ceiling traps it, and the air thickens until your eyes sting. You cough softly and move toward the entrance for a breath of bitter cold. Some caves had natural ventilation, cracks that let smoke out and air in. Others didn't. There are signs, like smoke, blackened ceilings, that people tried everything: angling fires near openings, digging shallow pits, even propping hides to funnel air. One wrong move though, and you've got a prehistoric gas chamber. So you shuffle back, eyes watering, thinking about how much you owe to modern chimneys. A single ember drifts from the fire, lands on a patch of dry moss, and dies with a faint hiss. You exhale relieved. It's strange how fragile the balance is. Too much heat, and you burn your shelter. Too little, and you freeze. The rhythm of the fire becomes a kind of heartbeat for the group, each crackle marking another minute of survival. Somewhere in the back of the cave, a child stirs. You can hear the rustle of fur and the soft murmur of a woman's voice. A lullaby, or maybe just a quiet reassurance. The air smells of animal fat and damp limestone. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel your consciousness drift the way theirs might have. In half sleep, always alert for danger. You never fully surrender to dreams out here. Now and then, you imagine the cave as it looks from outside a dim orange pulse in an ocean of white and grey. Maybe that flicker was visible for miles. To other bands of humans, or Neanderthals, it might have meant one of two things: safety or threat. Anthropologists have found overlapping evidence of both coexistence and competition in these caves. Historians still argue whether these groups shared space or drove each other out. Either way, that light would have sent a message. Occupied. Warm. Stay back. You glance at the wall behind you. There, faintly, is a handprint, red ochre smudged against pale stone. It's smaller than yours. Maybe a child's. Maybe a kind of signature: I was here. I survived this winter. Those marks have outlasted their makers by tens of thousands of years. You can still see the curve of a palm, the scatter of fingers. The pigment was made from crushed rock mixed with fat. Possibly the same fat that kept fires burning. It's as if every part of life here recycled itself. Heat, art, survival, and memory all fed from the same small source. A soft draft curls through the cave, rattling the fur hanging at the entrance. Someone tosses another branch into the fire, and sparks whirl upward. You notice how everyone moves in silence. No words wasted, no chatter. Speech, back then, was rationed like food. You communicated mostly through gesture, glances, and rhythm: who stands watch, who sleeps, who stokes. There's an odd, almost mystical comfort in imagining yourself there, not as an outsider, but as part of that circle. You know your place. You know your task. You know that when dawn comes, you'll go out to hunt, or gather firewood again, each day blending into the next, like one long inhale and exhale. In that simplicity lies a strange kind of peace. You look up again, watching how light paints the cave ceiling in swaying gold. The walls gleam faintly where water trickles down. Every sound, the crackle, the sigh, the drip, becomes part of a lullaby. You can almost feel your heart syncing with it, slower, steadier, surrendering to the rhythm of survival. Now imagine, for a moment, losing that fire. Maybe rain drenched the embers. Maybe a sudden wind snuffed it out. You'd have to start again. Flint against pyrite, sparks barely catching. Hours of work, fingers numb, lungs full of smoke. One mistake and you're in darkness again. And yet, they did it. Over and over. Archaeological finds show that even when fires went out, they relit them within hours. Persistence was a skill long before civilization was. There's a fringe theory. Not everyone buys it. That early humans used certain caves only in winter, returning each year like migratory animals. The soot layers suggest seasonal use, but no one's entirely sure. Historians still argue whether the same families returned, or if newcomers claimed the warmth each season. You can almost imagine two groups meeting here. The old and the new, the familiar and the desperate, each seeing the other's fire and wondering if there's room for one more. Outside, the snow thickens, muting the world. Inside, your breath mingles with smoke and memory. You think of how fragile this setup is, and yet how ingenious. A fire pit, some hides, a few tools, and suddenly, this freezing void becomes a home. You're witnessing the invention of comfort itself. The night stretches long, but the warmth holds steady. You shuffle closer to the flames, your eyelids heavy, the world soft around the edges. The stone hums faintly, carrying echoes from a time before words. You can almost hear a heartbeat, maybe your own, maybe the cave's. Either way, it's steady. And as the last flicker of flame dances across the rock, you understand why these people stayed here, not just to survive, but to belong. If only for one cold night. You wake to the faint smell of smoke and the crackle of wood. The fire's been tended through the night. Someone must have stayed awake, nudging coals back to life with patient hands. Outside, the light has changed. The cave mouth glows with a ghostly pale reflection, morning sun bouncing off snow. You blink, stretch under your fur, and realize it's time to check the cave itself. Because not every cave makes a good home. Choosing the right one, that's a skill as ancient as tool-making. You shuffle toward the entrance, dragging your feet across uneven stone, feeling cold creep up through the soles. The wind slices against your cheeks, but the view is staggering. A world of white plains and jagged cliffs, a horizon that seems both endless and empty. You take a moment to imagine the task, picking a cave that won't kill you by nightfall. Orientation comes first. You want a cave that faces away from the prevailing wind, preferably east or southeast, so the morning sun can seep in and thaw you without the evening storms blowing smoke into your lungs. Archaeologists studying Ice Age dwellings have actually noticed this pattern, entrances angled toward sunrise, nature's first heater. You'd call it a cozy design choice. They called it survival geometry. You step outside, scanning nearby cliffs. There are openings everywhere, but most are too shallow or too exposed. You want depth. Enough to trap warmth, but not so deep that you suffocate. Caves were like lungs too closed, and you'd choke, too open, and the breath of winter would strip your fire bare. You test a few hollows with a cautious step. Some echo sharply, their acoustics betraying a wide chamber, where smoke would hang heavy. Others are damp, their floors slick with runoff from melting snow. You shake your head. Too risky. Drainage matters too. The floor should slope just enough for meltwater to trickle out, not pool beneath your bedding. You can almost see your prehistoric self crouching, tracing the incline with a stick, muttering something like, "No good. Will flood." Those who chose poorly didn't last long. Archaeologists have found ancient hearths, blackened by soot yet, surrounded by calcified layers of flood residue, as if nature herself tried to erase their brief tenancy. And then there's the animal issue. You glance at a set of massive paw prints, frozen in the snow nearby. Bear, maybe. Back then, caves weren't abandoned shelters waiting for human tenants. They were already occupied. You can almost picture the encounter. One group of early humans creeping into a cavern, their torches flickering, only to find glowing eyes deep in the dark. A bear den. Or worse, a cave lion's lair. There's a real site, Chauvet Cave in France, where evidence shows alternating human and bear occupation, layers of bones and claw marks, stacked like an argument over the lease. Historians still argue whether humans displaced bears or merely borrowed their dens between seasons. You step further in again, shivering as the air thickens. The walls here are smooth, polished by millennia of water. A good sign. Stability. Loose rock could mean collapse. You tap one overhang with your knuckle, half expecting an echo. It's solid. You exhale. Safety, for now. Your group would have checked all this instinctively: wind, water, rock, predators. But there was something else. Sound. In deep winter, silence is safety. A cave that groans, whistles, or drips too loudly could mask the approach of danger. You cup your hands to your ears and listen. Just the low hum of fire, the faint whistle of air moving through a narrow crack. not bad. Acoustics were primitive alarm systems. Echoes told you when something moved outside. You turned toward the floor. Uneven stone, scattered pebbles, patches of damp sand. You start clearing it, dragging a flat rock to one corner to mark a boundary. That's where the fire will go again tonight, you decide. Around it, sleeping spots will form like petals around a flower. It's oddly satisfying, imagining how ancient you might look doing this, performing the same gestures your ancestors perfected 40,000 years ago. There's a mainstream theory that early humans used smaller side chambers as private quarters, sleeping nooks for families, or perhaps places to store meat away from the main hearth. Archaeologists found stone, windbreaks, in some European caves, crude barriers that may have acted like prehistoric partitions. You picture yourself setting one up, dragging slabs into place, muttering something about open plan living being overrated. A fringe idea goes further. That cave placement wasn't just about warmth or safety, but about spirit. Some anthropologists argue early humans believed certain caves were alive, throats of the earth that breathed warmth or cold, depending on their mood. Selecting one, then, wasn't only practical. It was ritual. You'd listen for the cave's voice before settling, testing its echoes the way a modern person might test a mattress. It's a poetic thought, maybe too poetic. But in this dim light, it makes sense. The cave does feel sentient, humming quietly around you. You squat near the mouth and study the view again. From here, you can see game trails cutting through snowdrifts, faint marks where reindeer have passed. That's another factor. Proximity to food. No one wants to trek miles in waste, deep snow, just for dinner. Caves near river valleys or migration routes became winter havens. Archaeologists still find butchered bones clustered near such sites, hinting at long-term camps. The best caves, then, weren't just shelters. They were strategic outposts, a mix between fortress, pantry, and social hub. You glance down and notice a patch of discolored rock. Charcoal flecks embedded in the surface. Old, very old. You run a finger across it, and a smear of black dust marks your skin. Someone else burned wood here. Maybe centuries, maybe millennia before you. You can't help but smile. It's like shaking hands through time. The smell of damp earth fills your nose. You pick up a handful, rub it between your palms. Cold, gritty, slightly metallic. You think of insulation, of how even the ground matters. Some groups laid animal skins directly over packed soil, but others layered moss and dry grasses first. You make a mental note. This cave floor will need work before nightfall. From the entrance, a companion calls, a faint, guttural tone that's half word, half sound. You answer, equally primitive. Language here is not about syntax, it's about rhythm. A call, a response, reassurance that both of you are still alive. You notice your voice bouncing back in echoes, fainter each time, like a heartbeat fading into distance. You pause and look upward, tracing cracks that spiderweb across the ceiling. Water has carved delicate lines through the stone, shimmering faintly with frost. You can tell this cave floods sometimes, but not heavily. The walls bear no deep stains, no lines of sediment. You decide it'll do. And then, you think of the darkness. The kind that swallows everything once the fire dies. It's easy to romanticize cave life. All fur blankets and glowing embers. Until you imagine being trapped inside that void, hearing only your own breath. Early humans didn't just choose caves for shelter, they chose them for manageability of fear. Too big, and the dark became an enemy. Too small, and you couldn't escape the smell or the smoke. You needed a balance. A space large enough for your people, but small enough that you could believe you'd survive inside it. Historians still argue whether early cave settlers understood airflow scientifically, or just learned through trial and error. The evidence suggests both. Charcoal layers, positioned hearths, and soot stains all tell stories of experimentation. You can almost see them, crouched over flickering flames, waving hands to trace the path of smoke, making adjustments until the air cleared enough to breathe. It's the birth of engineering, hidden under a layer of soot. As the day brightens, you and your group gather outside to collect materials. Firewood, dried grass, stones to ring the hearth. Each trip into the cold is a battle. The wind feels sharper now, slicing between ribs. You glance back often, ensuring the cave remains visible behind you. Lose sight of it, and you might not find it again in this blizzard blur. When you finally return, your arms full, the cave feels warmer just by contrast. You set down your bundle, shake snow from your shoulders, and realize this hollow of rock, dark, damp, imperfect, has become a home. You didn't build it, but you claimed it. And that's how it started for most of human history, not by creation, but by selection. By finding what already existed and learning to live inside it. As evening creeps back, the fire crackles once more, its light playing across stone walls. Shadows of your companions flicker like spirits. You lie back against the cold floor, staring at the ceiling, knowing that above you lies hundreds of tons of rock, and outside, a storm that would kill you in minutes. But here, inside this chosen cave, the air smells faintly of warmth and wood smoke. You close your eyes, exhale, and think of how strange it is that survival can feel so much like peace when done right. You don't know it yet, but thousands of years from now, someone will stand where you are and call this place a site. They'll give it a catalogue number. They'll study your ashes and your bones and call this moment of shivering safety, the dawn of domestic life. The morning fog lingers like breath over the valley, and your cave smells of wood smoke, damp fur, and the faint sweetness of burned fat. Proof that the fire lived through the night. You stretch, bones creaking, and shuffle closer to the hearth. The coals still glow beneath a crust of grey ash. That's good. Keeping it alive means you won't have to start from scratch. Because anyone who's ever tried to spark new fire with half-frozen fingers knows, it's not just difficult. It's despair in disguise. You kneel, blowing gently until orange flares back to life. The smoke curls upward, lazy and almost sentient, as if remembering its route from the night before. There's an art to this, a delicate balance between too much oxygen and not enough. If you blow too hard, you scatter the coals too softly, and the flame starves. Your breath becomes the cave's heartbeat again. Firecraft. It's your ticket to life, warmth, and cooked meat. It's also a constant struggle against the elements. The wood you burned last night is half consumed, leaving a small pile of charcoal and blackened logs. You know you'll need more before dusk, and not just any kind. Early humans were picky pyromaniacs. Pine burns fast and bright. Birch gives off steady heat. Oak smolders forever. Archaeologists have even found ancient fire pits layered with different woods, suggesting early experimentation. You're not just burning fuel, you're curating a climate. A mainstream historical fact worth noting. The oldest known, domesticated fire site is in Wonderwork Cave, South Africa, nearly 1 million years old. There, beneath ancient sediment, scientists found microscopic ash, bone fragments, and burned grass. It wasn't wildfire residue. It was deliberate. That discovery proves something astonishing. Humans didn't just stumble into warmth. They mastered it long before they mastered language. You add a few twigs, coaxing the flames higher. The smoke thickens, stinging your eyes. You cough once, then twice, squinting toward the mouth of the cave. The air inside feels heavy, syrupy. There's a reason ancient hearths weren't always centered. They were often closer to the entrance, where drafts could tug the smoke outward. You shift a burning branch, watch the current change. The smoke stream bends, hesitates, then snakes toward daylight like it's finally found a path home. Historians still argue whether this understanding of airflow came from accident or intention. Did someone, centuries ago, simply move their fire closer to the opening and notice their lungs stopped burning? Or did they think about it, test and adjust, until they invented natural ventilation? You suspect it was both. Necessity teaches fast, and coughing all night is a powerful motivator. You take a step toward the entrance and feel cold air sweep in. It's sharp but fresh, and instantly, the smoke begins to drift more cleanly out. You grin. A simple fix, yet the difference between life and death in an enclosed stone tomb. You stand there for a moment, watching how the orange light from the fire meets the white glare of snow outside. Two worlds kissing at the cave's edge. Then you notice the ceiling, blackened, shiny in spots. Tar-like soot layer upon layer built up over years. Some caves still bear those stains today, thick enough that archaeologists have to chip through centuries of smoke memory. In that darkness, you can almost see the fingerprints of every fire keeper who came before you. A gust of wind cuts through, scattering sparks. You crouch, shielding the flames with your body. It's instinctive, protecting your warmth the way you'd guard your own heartbeat. The fire sputters, then catches again, steady as ever. You laugh quietly to yourself. Somewhere out there, millions of years later, people are still doing this exact dance around campfires, arguing about airflow and kindling. One of your companions stirs awake, rubbing their eyes. They grunt, half asleep, and shuffle toward the fire, holding out their hands. You pass them a burning stick, a morning torch. They nod in thanks, then disappear deeper into the cave to light a second flame for cooking. Division of labor, even now. There's comfort in routine. You decide to check the smoke again, paranoia disguised as caution. You notice how it pools near a section of low ceiling, refusing to rise. That's where problems start. Carbon monoxide, though you wouldn't call it that yet, can creep up silently. You just know the signs: heavy breathing, dizziness, the sudden drop of a companion mid-laughter. You've seen it happen before. You remember dragging someone closer to the entrance, slapping their cheeks until they woke, gasping. That memory keeps you meticulous. You take a stick, poke a hole in a patch of moss that's blocking a small crevice near the wall. Immediately, the air changes again. The faintest of drafts, invisible but alive. The fire responds with a brighter pulse. Some archaeologists believe early cave dwellers even engineered primitive chimneys, funneling smoke through cracks, or burning in depressions that acted like air traps. Others disagree, arguing that these were natural geological features. Historians still argue whether such structures were intentional architecture or lucky coincidence. Either way, you know from experience that even luck demands attention. By midday, the fire is steady, the air breathable. You sit back and let your thoughts wander. Fire isn't just a tool, it's company. The light flickers and your mind drifts with it. Maybe that's why, for millennia, people have stared into flames as if expecting answers. The patterns soothe something ancient inside you. There's even a fringe theory that watching fire changed our brains, that the hypnotic rhythm of light and sound promoted social calm and cognitive development. The argument goes that fire didn't just cook food, it cooked consciousness. You pick up a charred stick, use it to draw lazy lines on the cave floor. Nothing artistic, just shapes. Circles, maybe a crude face. Later, someone might mistake it for a symbol. It's funny how thin the line is between doodling and archaeology. The day drags on. Smoke stains your hair, the scent clinging like history. You add more wood, listening to how each piece pops differently. Pine crackles, birch sighs. You think of warmth as a living sound, each spark a syllable in the language of survival. In the far corner, someone coughs. Too much smoke again. You wave your hand through the haze and decide to test an idea. You grab a wide, flat stone, prop it upright behind the fire like a mirror. The reflected heat hits your legs. Perfect. Archaeologists have found evidence of similar setups. Stones blackened only on one side, suggesting deliberate heat reflection. You've just invented central heating, prehistoric edition. As dusk crawls in, the fire becomes your sun again. Outside, the sky bruises purple. Snowflakes drift like dust motes, glowing faintly in the orange light spilling from the cave. Inside, the air grows warmer, almost cozy. You pull your fur closer, satisfied. You've survived another day with the most fragile of defenses. A pile of sticks and patience. You think about how fire must have changed everything. Before it, the world ended at nightfall. With it, the day stretched longer. People could sit together, repair tools, tell stories. The cave walls became canvases for flickering shadows. Maybe the first form of moving art. You can picture it. Shapes dancing across stone. Children giggling. Adults pretending not to believe in the ghosts they just created. It's strange how quickly the extraordinary becomes ordinary. A few thousand years earlier, lightning was divine. Now, you summon flame with sparks from a rock. You start to take it for granted, even curse it when smoke fills your eyes. That's progress. Comfort breeding complaint. The fire hums softly. Its warmth seeping into the rock, into your muscles, into the night itself. You lean back, half drowsy, tracing suit patterns on the wall with your gaze. Somewhere outside, wolves howl, distant, cautious. They know what that orange glow means. Humans are here. Fire turns you from prey into problem, from hunted to hunter. And that shift, right there in the cave's flicker, is what began civilization's long climb. A gust whips through the entrance again. The flame bows, then steadies, resilient. You smile. The cave feels alive, breathing in wind, exhaling smoke. It's as if you and the stone have reached an understanding. You keep the fire alive, and it keeps you. By now, the ceiling above is invisible, lost to soot and shadow. You stare up anyway, feeling the heat ripple against your cheeks. You close your eyes and imagine 1,000 generations doing exactly this. Tending, watching, surviving. And when you finally drift towards sleep, the last thing you see behind your eyelids isn't darkness. It's the afterimage of flame, pulsing red and gold. The first nightlight humanity ever knew. You wake with a stiff neck and a patch of ash stuck to your cheek. The fire's just a pile of glowing embers now, quietly humming in the half-light of dawn. Cold air slips in from the cave mouth and snakes across your bare hands. You pull them back under your fur and think, not for the first time, that the ground beneath you is the hardest mattress ever invented. The stone has no give, no mercy, and yet somehow, people slept like this for tens of thousands of years. You sit up, brushing frost from your hair, and look around. The bedding circle is a chaos of hides, straw bones, and stray feathers. A couple of your clanmates still snore softly, their breaths puffing white clouds that hang in the cold air. The smell is ripe. Sweat smoke, wet fur, a hint of mammoth fat. You try not to breathe too deeply. Bedding wasn't an afterthought. It was engineering. You tug at the layers under you, first a mat of dry grass, then a few thin branches of pine for structure, and on top, thick animal skins. Archaeologists at sites like Border Cave and Subudu in South Africa have found traces of just that. Ancient beds made of layered plants and leaves, some chosen because they repelled insects. You grin at the thought. The first mattresses came with built-in bug control. You shuffle toward the hearth and start shaking out one of the hides, sending up a small storm of dust and hair. The sound wakes one of the children. She blinks, curls deeper into her nest, and mumbles something you can't make out. You smile. Even in prehistory, mornings are rough. The fire needs feeding again, so you grab a stick and stir the coals. Sparks jump, a miniature galaxy against the grey dawn. You toss on a log, listen to it catch, and let the light stretch across the cave walls. The warmth spreads slowly, chasing the chill from the stone. Beneath your bare feet, the ground is a mosaic of fur scraps and flattened reeds. That patchwork of organic debris is what archaeologists today call occupation layers. But to you, it's just the by-product of living. Historians still argue whether early cave dwellers replaced their bedding often or simply piled new material over the old. Evidence suggests both. In some caves, distinct strata of grass and ash alternate, like pages in a storybook: use, burn, rebuild, repeat. You picture it, you sweeping up yesterday's pests, torching the remains, and starting over with fresh grass from the valley. A prehistoric version of changing the sheets. You take a fur cloak from a peg of bone near the wall. The pelt is heavy, stiff from cold, but soft where your hands have polished it smooth over time. These hides aren't just warmth, they're history. Every scar, every patch tells of a hunt that succeeded. You drape it around your shoulders and feel the immediate weight of survival. Some groups used furs from reindeer or horse, others from bison, even wolves. A good hide could last through many winters if scraped, smoked, and greased properly. The fat, rendered from marrow or fish, was rubbed into the skin to keep it supple. Without it, the fur would dry, crack, and crumble. You pick up a small stone bowl near the fire, dip your fingers into the greasy residue at its base, and massage it into a worn patch. The smell is awful, like burnt candles mixed with meat, but your fingers stop aching almost instantly. Archaeologists have found traces of ochre and fat mixed together, hinting that people may have treated hides with pigment for waterproofing or decoration. Maybe that red tint wasn't just vanity, it was practical. You look at the crimson streaks along your own cloak and wonder if that same trick gave rise to body paint later on. You move to the sleeping area again, shaking loose tufts of grass from one corner. Underneath, you find a smooth, flat stone, the kind you've been using to press down bedding edges. It's surprisingly warm. The fire's heat must have seeped through the rock during the night, creating a crude form of underfloor heating. You grin. Even back then, someone thought, what if we just made the ground a little less terrible? The bedding circle isn't uniform. Elders near the center. Children tucked between them, hunters and guards on the outer ring. It's like petals on a flower, arranged by warmth and importance. Safety by proximity. And there's always that one unlucky soul by the entrance, half awake through the night, keeping watch for predators or rival clans. That person never truly sleeps. You think of them now, slumped against the wall, their eyes open just enough to catch the flicker of firelight on the snow beyond. Historians still argue whether these sleeping patterns were communal by necessity or by choice. Did people feel safer together, or were they simply forced by the cold? There's even an idea that humans evolved to rest in overlapping shifts. A natural guard rotation encoded by millennia of icy nights. You feel that instinct still, in the way your ears twitch at any sound near the cave mouth. You roll up one of the hides and give it a shake. Dust motes swirl like tiny ghosts in the firelight. Somewhere behind you, the younger members begin to stir, scratching, yawning. Morning in the cave isn't so different from morning in any crowded house. There's shuffling muttering, and the constant negotiation of space. A soft joke ripples through your thoughts. Imagine the first prehistoric argument over blanket hogging. You can almost hear it. Two muffled voices, one insisting, "You took more hide than me," the other grunting in denial. You chuckle quietly. Some problems truly are eternal. You grab a handful of dried grass and stuff it into a small hollow between stones near the fire. Insulation pockets, simple, effective. The heat builds and lingers longer. You add more along the walls, tucking moss into gaps where the cold seeps through. This is how your ancestors insulated the world, one tuft at a time. There's a quirky tidbit archaeologists once puzzled over in some caves. They found beds lined with fragrant plants, like wild mint and camphor leaves. These weren't just pleasant, they repelled insects. Picture that. Prehistoric air fresheners. You wonder if the sweet smell also calmed people, helping them drift to sleep. After all, even the toughest hunter appreciates a good scent after weeks of mammoth stew. The day brightens slowly, pale light filtering through the cave mouth. You drag a skin closer to the fire, sitting cross-legged, letting the heat seep into your legs. You can hear the faint drip of melting ice outside, the creak of wind in the trees. The fire pops, sending a spray of sparks into the air. A thought crosses your mind. What would happen if you lost these furs? If they were stolen or soaked? Naked, you wouldn't last an hour out there. The hides are more than comfort. They're identity. Some are decorated with small beads made from bones or shells, trophies from successful hunts or traded ornaments. The designs tell stories. Who killed what? Who belongs where? Every pelt is a biography written in sinew and thread. You glance toward the sleeping corner again. A child curls deeper under a reindeer skin, her face half hidden. You remember fleetingly the last time she fell sick, a fever, maybe, or cold lungs. You piled extra hides on her, fed the fire till dawn. She lived. The bedding saved her life as surely as any medicine could. Historians still argue whether bedding was communal property or personal possession. Some graves show individuals buried with their furs, suggesting ownership. Others imply shared use, rotating as needed. You suspect it was both, depending on status and age. But one thing's certain, whoever had the softest pile was probably the most envied. The morning chores begin. Someone drags a half-burned log from the hearth, shakes off the ash, and uses it as a light to inspect tools. Another starts scraping a hide with a flint blade, rhythm steady, almost meditative. You listen to the sound. Scrape, scrape, pause. It's soothing in a strange way, like rain tapping stone. There's a fringe theory floating around among modern researchers that bedding wasn't just for sleeping, but for ritual. That nests of fur arranged around fires were symbolic, representations of the sun, fertility, or the body's connection to the earth. Maybe. But as you watch your people rebuild the sleeping circle, adjusting every scrap for warmth and symmetry, you can't help but think it's simpler than that. It's not worship, it's comfort. Something every human, no matter the century, understands. By midday, the cave feels alive again. The fire dances. Smoke drifts lazily toward the entrance, and your furs have regained some softness. You lie back, feeling warmth radiate through your layers of grass and skin. The rock beneath is still hard, but less cruel now. You look up, tracing suit patterns overhead, each one a record of countless nights like this. You breathe in smoke, exhale fog, and think about how strange it is that home can be made of stone, ash, and dead animals, and still feel perfect. Outside, the wind howls, scattering snow in spirals. Inside, the cave glows gold. You close your eyes, listening to the heartbeat of the fire, the slow breathing of those around you. For a few moments, there is no hunger, no danger, no cold. Just layers, fur, grass, stone. Time, stacked carefully between you and the void. The snow thickens outside, swallowing every sound but the low whistle of the wind. Inside the cave, it's darker than usual, the entrance half blocked by drifts. You hunch closer to the fire, watching the flames lick and curl like lazy snakes. The smoke clings to the roof, then slips out through cracks in the stone, leaving that familiar tang of ash and meat. You rub your hands, bones creaking, and stare into the flicker. Firelight turns the walls into a living thing, shadows stretching, shrinking, dancing. Tonight will be long and cold. You can tell already from the sharp bite in the air. The way even the fire's heat seems to hit a wall before reaching the far corners. Everyone's gathering closer. Fur bundles shift, bodies press tighter, breath mingles into one misty rhythm. The sleeping circle contracts like a heartbeat. The oldest woman of the group mutters something under her breath as she piles on more wood. You don't understand every word. Her dialect's older, rougher. But the gist is clear: this storm won't pass soon. You glance toward the entrance, where wind snakes in through a thin slit, carrying fine white powder. Someone stuffs moss into the gap. The hiss of wind softens. Caves, for all their gloom, are the perfect winter hideout. Natural insulation. Thick rock walls hold heat long after the fire dies. Some sites, like those in southern France and Spain, show layers of soot built up over centuries. You imagine generations of people, maybe even your bloodline, sitting right where you are now, watching the same walls glow orange. A shared inheritance of warmth. Historians still argue whether fire was kept burning constantly through winter or relit each day. Evidence of deep ash pits suggests the former. An eternal hearth, tended by whoever was too restless or unlucky to sleep. Maybe that's you tonight. You grab a branch and poke at the fire again. Sparks rise, settling briefly on the fur across your knees before fading to nothing. You remember when keeping embers alive was more than habit. It was survival. Some groups carried hot coals wrapped in bark and moss as they migrated, like portable suns. Lose that, and you'd freeze before morning. A soft laugh breaks your thought. Two of the younger men are whispering, gesturing toward a sleeping hunter whose beard has frozen into tiny icicles. They nudge each other, trying not to wake him. You grin. Even in a world of stone and ice, mischief finds its way in. You shift your bedding closer to the central fire pit. The ground is uneven, so you kneel and smooth it out with the side of a flat rock, scattering stray pebbles. Beneath the top layer, the dirt's warm, proof that the hearth's been running since last night. You press your palms against it, soaking up the faint heat. A few feet away, someone adds more sticks to the outer ring fires. Those smaller flames act as barriers, warding off the worst of the drafts. You've noticed something interesting over time. The placement of each hearth isn't random. There's a pattern, a geometry of warmth. Fire at the center, sleepers in rings, and sometimes even a smaller, separate pit near the entrance, maybe to distract predators or melt snow that seeps inside. Early architecture, written in smoke and stone. You lie back again, letting your head rest on a folded fur. The ceiling's black with soot, but dotted with faint mineral sparkles, mica maybe, or salt glinting in the light. It's almost pretty, in a gritty way. You trace the shimmer with your eyes, like stars arranged by accident. Outside, the storm is a wild animal howling against the stone. Inside, there's only the crackle of firewood and the soft shuffle of bodies resettling. Someone coughs. Someone snores. Someone's stomach growls loud enough to make the others chuckle. You smile at that tiny, ridiculous sound of normalcy. Here, warmth is everything. And warmth isn't just heat, it's proximity. You glance at the cluster beside you. Families, friends, strangers. Everyone stacked together like logs in a pile. Personal space. That concept hasn't been invented yet. You can feel the pulse of the person behind you, steady and slow. Anthropologists once suggested that communal sleeping strengthened social bonds, even improved empathy. Maybe huddling through cold nights literally rewired the human brain for cooperation. You find that oddly comforting. Civilization might have started not around campfires of storytelling, but around the quiet sharing of warmth. There's a smell of damp fur rising as the fire strengthens. Someone shifts closer, dragging a heavy pelt over both of you. The weight pins you in place. You can barely move, but that's the point. It traps the heat. Breath warms the air inside the hide. The outside world fades to a dull white hum. Your thoughts drift to how much effort it takes to make all this work. The gathering of fuel, the drying of wood, the layering of bedding. People talk about the Stone Age, but really, it's the Fire Age. Stone gives structure, but fire gives comfort. You wonder if the earliest cave dwellers ever sat staring into their flames and thought, "This is the best thing we ever stole from the gods." A stray log rolls off the fire's edge, spitting sparks. You push it back in with a stick. Smoke coils around you, stinging your eyes. You blink, then chuckle. It smells better than half the things in this cave. A quirky fact floats through your head. Some Ice Age caves show blackened ceilings so thick with soot that archaeologists believe fires once burned there non-stop for months. Imagine that. An ancient version of central heating, minus the ventilation. You'd cough, sure, but at least you'd be alive. You look up again, half, laughing at the irony that survival has always been about trade. Off's comfort vis lungs. You settle back down, eyes heavy. The warmth is creeping through the layers, melting the stiffness in your joints. You watch the flames in a trance. Every flicker tells a story. One moment blue and sharp, the next dull red and calm. It's hypnotic, like watching time breathe. Historians still argue about whether these long winter nights bred the earliest human dreams. With nothing to do but doze and wake, sleep and stir. Maybe imagination grew out of boredom by the fire. You like that thought. Dreaming is a side effect of too many cold nights. You drift for a moment, half awake, half floating. The sounds around you fade into a kind of rhythm. The crackle, the wind, the sighs. A lullaby of survival. Then, faintly, you hear it. The low groan of the mountain itself. It happens sometimes, when snow shifts on the slopes above or ice expands in cracks. The sound is deep and ancient, like the cave's own heartbeat. Everyone stills. Even the fire seems to hold its breath. Then, as quickly as it came, the noise fades. Someone exhales loudly. Nervous laughter bubbles up. The moment passes. You can't help but smile. Humans have always listened for monsters in the dark, even when it's just the weather grumbling. Fears as old as sleep. You adjust the fur over your shoulders and stretch your legs. The ground beneath you feels a little softer now, packed from use, padded by layer after layer of discarded reeds. In the corner, a few embers from last night's smaller fire still glow faintly. You toss a handful of dry twigs on them, and they flare up again. Small, personal warmth, your own private sun. The others begin settling back into quiet. The elder hums something low, maybe a song or a story's beginning. You catch a few words about wolves and spirits, nothing you quite understand. But the tone is soothing, steady. It wraps around the firelight like a second blanket. You let your eyes close again. The air inside the cave is thick with the scent of smoke and musk, the symphony of winter survival. You think about how, millennia from now, someone might dig here, find layers of charcoal, grass and bone, and say, "They lived here." They'll know the story of this warmth, even if they never feel it. A stray ember pops, lands on the edge of your pelt, leaving a tiny dark mark. You brush it off and laugh quietly. Even the fire can't resist leaving its autograph. Outside, the snow keeps falling, burying the world in silence. Inside, time folds in on itself. You feel the pulse of ancient nights, the rhythm of survival, the shared breath of your people. And you realize something quietly profound. That for all our future inventions, for all the beds and blankets and thermostats to come, sleep will always be the same, a surrender to darkness, a trust that warmth will be waiting when we wake. The storm has passed. When you crawl toward the cave's mouth, the air that meets you is crisp, still, and silvered by morning light. Snow glows so bright it hurts your eyes. For a moment, the whole world looks new, reborn under a clean white skin. You stand there, bare feet sinking into a thin crust of frost, and breathe deeply. The cold stings your throat, but it also wakes something in you. Behind you, the cave is still dim and warm. Bodies stir under hides, the faint crackle of the fire still alive. You look back at them. Your people, bundled and tangled in a patchwork of furs. And you can't help thinking how strange it is that this is what safety looks like: darkness, heat, and the smell of smoke. You step outside carefully, testing the slope. The snow crunches like old bones underfoot. Around you, the world is quiet except for a few distant crows. Even the wind seems tired after the night's fury. You crouch, scoop up a handful of snow, and press it to your face. The shock makes you gasp, but it feels clean, purging the heaviness of smoke from your lungs. The sky's low, pale grey, with a faint blush of dawn at the edges. The storm's done what it always does: erased tracks, buried evidence. Yesterday's world is gone. You glance at the cave's mouth, narrow, curved, half hidden by icicles. It looks exactly like what it is: a wound in the earth that keeps you alive. Historians still argue whether caves were chosen for protection, for ritual, or just because people were tired of freezing to death in open plains. Probably all three. The walls weren't just stone. They were memory, comfort, shelter from everything sharp. You walk a few steps further and spot the remains of last night's firewood pile, now half buried. The branches crack when you pick them up, frozen solid. You bring a few back inside. The others are waking now, stretching, scratching, complaining softly about the cold. You toss the wood onto the embers and coax them to life. The fire answers reluctantly, coughing smoke first, then catching flame. You feed it, bit by bit, until the cave begins to glow again. There's a quiet rhythm to mornings like this. It's almost meditative. Add fuel, stir coals, stretch sore limbs, check the furs, watch the smoke rise. You sit near the hearth, legs crossed, rubbing your hands. The smell of thawing hides fills the air again. Wet hair and musk and life. You grin a little. If someone from the future ever time traveled here, this smell alone would send them running back through the timeline. Someone behind you yawns, loud enough to echo. The sound makes a child giggle. The elder woman stirs the soup pot. Last night's broth thickened with whatever roots survived the frost. You sip a little. It's earthy, bitter but hot. You can't help it. You sigh out loud. Warm food is happiness distilled. As the group eats, talk turns to the hunt. The men argue over whether the mammoths will move closer to the valley after the storm. You listen half-heartedly, your attention still caught by the fire. The logs collapse into a bright heart of embers, and you think again about how much this simple orange light means. Archaeologists once found circular patterns of ash inside caves, suggesting that fires weren't just for warmth, but for light and orientation. Imagine it. Before fire, the night was absolute. Then suddenly, one spark, and the world divided light and dark, safety and danger. Maybe that's when humans started to dream of control. You poke the fire absently, tracing lazy circles in the ash. Sparks burst and fade like fireflies. There's something mesmerizing about repetition. It's hypnotic. You wonder how many generations sat exactly as you do now, doing exactly this, waiting for the cold to loosen its grip. The child beside you coughs once, then curls closer to her mother. You notice her small fur wrap slipping and pull it tighter around her. The instinct is automatic, quiet. You've seen too many lose warmth in their sleep. Historians still argue whether children slept with parents for protection or simply because no one could afford separation. Either way, it worked. Touch equals life. You glance toward the entrance again. Light spills in now, pale gold, catching the fine particles of ash floating through the air. They glitter like dust made holy. The scene's almost beautiful enough to make you forget your numb fingers. But winter isn't done yet. You know that. There will be more storms, more nights when the cave seems too small for the shivering, and the breathing, and the fear. Still, for now, it feels like reprieve. You can almost relax. You stand and stretch. The joints in your back pop loudly enough to make the elder glance up in disapproval. You grin and shrug. She mutters something about young bones wasting warmth. You choose not to reply. Instead, you move toward the wall where tools are stacked. Spears, scrapers, stone knives. You pick one up and start sharpening it. The repetitive scrape fills the air, mingling with the crackle of fire. The sound is almost soothing. There's a quirky fact about ancient caves. You once heard some were acoustically perfect. The shapes of the walls made echoes bounce and hum, creating eerie resonances when people spoke or sang. Maybe that's why early humans painted animals on those walls, to capture the rhythm, the breath of the place. You tap your knife against the stone experimentally, and sure enough, the cave answers with a soft hum. You smile. It's like the rock remembers. The elder woman joins you, pressing a hand against the wall. Listen, she whispers, as if the cave might actually speak. The wind outside pushes faintly through a crack, making a hollow sound like distant chanting. The hairs on your neck rise. You tell yourself it's just air, but you're not entirely convinced. Historians still argue whether caves were homes, temples, or both. Maybe the two were never separate. When the world outside could kill you in an hour, every safe place became sacred by default. You look around at the suit, dark walls, the flickering light, the sleeping forms, and think, yes, this is a kind of church. The church of survival. You sit again near the fire, watching smoke curl toward the ceiling. It's beautiful and suffocating all at once. The air's thick, but it feels alive, heavy with breath and warmth and continuity. You reach for your fur cloak and wrap it tighter. The hide creaks as it moves. You press your cheek against the soft inner side and close your eyes. The texture's rough in places, smoother where your hands have polished it night after night. It smells like home, sweat, fire, animal oil, time. Someone laughs softly, telling a joke you barely catch. You only hear the last word, snow butt. It makes no sense, but you chuckle anyway. You don't need logic for humor out here, just timing and warmth. You take another sip of broth, lean back on your elbow, and watch the smoke climb. A new rhythm begins, the day winding into another long night. The chores repeat. The fires are fed. The bedding is checked, patch fluffed, shared. Soon the light fades again. Outside, the snow glows faint blue under a rising moon. Inside, the cave is a world unto itself. A warm cocoon surrounded by silence. You settle down on your mat of reeds and furs, adjusting the edges. The ground's still hard, but you've gotten used to its indifference. Before you close your eyes, you glance once more at the fire. It's smaller now, just a handful of red embers breathing quietly. You smile, thinking of them as tiny hearts keeping watch. And as sleep starts to pull you under, one last thought drifts through this warmth, this shared space, this flicker of safety in a frozen world. It's fragile, but it's enough. It always has been. The next morning, the air in the cave feels strangely thin. The fire has burned low again. Nothing left but a faint orange glow hiding under grey ash. You wake slowly, every muscle stiff from another night on the uneven ground. For a while, you just lie there, staring at the ceiling, a suit, black sky with faint glimmers of mica, and try to remember what it feels like to be warm all the way through. The first thing you hear is coughing. Not sharp or violent, just the dry, persistent kind that echoes off the stone. The elder woman, of course. She's sitting by the wall, rubbing her chest, muttering. You sit up, shuffle closer, and add a few dry twigs to the hearth. The spark takes quickly, as if the fire's been waiting for you. Flames bloom, slow but sure. You blow gently, feeding oxygen into the ember's tiny lungs. The smoke stings your eyes, but you keep going until the fire sighs itself awake. The others start to stir. You catch the rustle of hides, the shuffle of bare feet, the small groan of someone stretching. It's like an orchestra of exhaustion, tuned to survival. You glance toward the cave mouth. Light spills in, softer today. The storm clouds have broken, and beyond the entrance, you can see the pale shimmer of ice on the cliffs. The air looks brutally cold but clean. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is the same as last night's soup. Thin, smoky, but warm. You pass the bowl between calloused hands, feeling the heat seep into your skin. Around you, conversation flickers like the fire. Low, tired, and rhythmic. There's a strange calm in this routine. You realize that winter has a way of shrinking the world. No one talks about the future, when the next hour might freeze you solid. All that matters is keeping the fire alive and the furs dry. Everything else is background noise. You stretch, wincing at the crack of your joints, and crawl over to the bedding circle. It's a mess of crushed grass, tangled hides, and half-melted snow dragged in on boots. You start tidying, shaking out the furs, piling them to air near the fire. The smell of singed hair rises again, the unofficial perfume of prehistory. A small boy watches you, half amused, half bored. You hand him a scrap of dry moss and tell him to stuff it into one of the wall cracks. He does it dutifully, then stares at you as if waiting for praise. You smile and pat his shoulder. The truth is, every pair of hands counts. Keeping this place insulated is everyone's job. Historians still argue whether the earliest cave dwellers understood airflow. The delicate balance between sealing out cold and letting smoke escape. Some caves show carefully arranged vents. Others look like lung-blackening disasters. You glance upward at the thin sliver of light above your fire pit. It's primitive but deliberate. A prehistoric chimney. The air's hazy, thick enough to taste, but you're used to it. You lean closer to the wall, tracing soot patterns with your finger. Over time, you've started recognizing them, like familiar constellations. The curve that looks like a bear, the streak that might be a spear, the drip that somehow always resembles a running figure. Maybe imagination thrives in smoke. A quirky tidbit surfaces from memory. In some caves, archaeologists found red and black pigments near hearths, suggesting that people sometimes painted while they sat by the fire. Maybe not elaborate murals, just doodles, test marks, idle scratches in the stone. The ancient equivalent of sketching in the margins of a notebook. You look at the blackened wall and can almost see it. Someone drawing with charred wood, tracing the outline of a hunt they survived. The day drifts on. A group goes outside to check the snares set near the valley edge. You stay behind, assigned to guard the fire. You don't mind. The world beyond the cave is dazzlingly bright and endlessly cold. In here, at least, you can pretend warmth is a steady thing. You feed the flames occasionally, rearranging logs so the heat spreads evenly. There's a rhythm to it, an art. You tilt one branch, slide another closer, coaxing the embers to breathe deeper. The result is a kind of meditation. The crackle, the hiss, the soft roar. It's the heartbeat of the cave itself. Historians still argue whether early humans used different woods for different purposes. Some for cooking, others for light, others for aroma or smoke. Charcoal residues suggest they did. You like the idea that even in a world of constant danger, people cared about the quality of their fire. Maybe comfort has always been an art form. By midday, the air in the cave grows warmer, almost cozy. The others return, stamping snow off their boots, carrying 2 rabbits and a bundle of half-frozen berries. The elder clucks approvingly, then immediately starts complaining that the berries are too small. You grin, watching her fuss. She's like the flame itself, fierce, unpredictable, impossible to ignore. They skin the rabbits near the entrance, the work quick and efficient. The smell of fresh meat fills the cave, metallic, sharp, almost sweet. You've smelled worse. Much worse. Soon, strips of meat are hanging near the fire on a thin frame of green branches, smoking gently. The fat drips and plops. You lean back, eyes half closed, hypnotized by the rhythm of it. Later, when the fire burns low again, someone tells a story. It starts with a hunter who fell asleep too close to the cave mouth and woke to find his hair frozen to the wall. The story's been told 100 times, but everyone still laughs at the same parts. You chuckle quietly, shaking your head. Even now, humans can't resist retelling what's already been told. The child beside you leans in closer. Her hair smells of smoke and pine. She asks if it's true, that you can dream your way into warmth if you try hard enough. You smile and tell her yes, maybe, if your imagination burns hotter than the fire. She giggles, half believing, half testing. You remember being that age, half curious, half terrified of the dark. A gust of wind sneaks through the entrance, brushing cold fingers over your skin. You shiver instinctively. The fire flares in response, like a living creature defending itself. The flames bend and crackle louder. For a moment, you and the fire are in sync, both of you stubborn, both refusing to die out. You toss another log on, listening to the bark split and hiss. Sparks jump high, painting the ceiling with brief constellations of gold. You can't help but whisper, "Stay alive," even though you're not sure who you're saying it to, the fire or yourself. There's a brief silence after that, a shared stillness. The others settle down for rest, one by one. The fire's hum becomes softer, deeper. You lie down again, pulling your fur over your head, the familiar scent wrapping around you like memory itself. In the half sleep that follows, you imagine warmth as something that has weight, a blanket of invisible fur draped over the cave. You can almost feel it pressing against your skin, alive and ancient. Historians still argue whether people dreamed differently in those days. If the constant flicker of firelight on the cave walls shaped the kinds of stories that filled their sleep, you wonder what it would be like to dream without words, without images, just sensations. Heat, breath, darkness. You drift deeper. The world narrowing to sound and pulse. The crack of fire, the sigh of wind through stone, the rhythm of shared breath all around you. In the heart of winter, sleep becomes both rebellion and surrender. You know that when you wake, there'll be more snow, more cold, more work. But for now, in this perfect pocket of warmth and flickering light, the world feels steady. The cave hums quietly, almost singing. You smile in your sleep. Somewhere, deep in the back of your mind, you realize this is what it means to belong. To the cold, to the dark, to the fire, and to the long unbroken chain of nights that came before you. You wake to the faint rhythm of dripping water. At first, it blends with your dream, a distant, liquid tapping in some endless corridor. But then your eyes open, and the world resolves back into cold stone and dim light. The ceiling above you glistens with beads of condensation, the slow melt of trapped ice. Somewhere outside, the temperature must have lifted a little. You push yourself up, bones groaning in protest. Around you, the others are stirring too, wrapped in their furs like slow, moving boulders. The fire's still alive, barely. A few red eyes blink from the ash pit, surrounded by cold grey dust. You reach over, stir the coals gently, then feed in a twist of dry grass. The flame catches, stretching upward like it's been holding its breath all night. The air smells of damp earth and smoke. It's a scent that's become oddly comforting, proof that life continues. You watch the flame dance against the cave wall, illuminating the soot marks and faint scratches that you've grown used to tracing with your eyes. You find the familiar ones. The curved line that looks like a sleeping bear, the rough streaks that might have been drawn by a bored hunter. Outside, the world brightens. The snow glare filters through the cave entrance, blue, white and cold. When you stand and stretch, the air shifts, sending another puff of smoke upward through the makeshift chimney slit. The draft works just enough to keep the air breathable. Someone coughs behind you, the elder again. You glance over, she's awake, her hair a storm of grey and shadows. She gestures toward the entrance, mumbling something about checking the traps again. You nod, even though every part of you dreads stepping into that frozen air. The group divides naturally, some tending the fire, some heading out for food. You join the latter, wrapping your furs tightly and adjusting the leather ties around your legs. The cold bites instantly, slicing through the seams like a knife. The world outside is silent, except for the crunch of your boots in the snow. The valley stretches before you, still blanketed in white. Frost clings to the low shrubs like delicate crystal armor. You move carefully, scanning the ground for signs of movement. Historians still argue whether early humans followed consistent hunting routes during deep winter or moved caves as food supplies dwindled. Some evidence suggests small migrations, shifting between nearby shelters as prey moved through. But looking around at the sheer emptiness of this frozen world, you can't imagine packing up and leaving this one fragile refuge. The path to the traps is half, buried in drifted snow. You spot one snare almost immediately, a loop of sinew frozen stiff, holding a small hare. Its fur is ruffled, eyes glassy. You feel a flicker of guilt, but it's quickly swallowed by relief. The others will eat tonight. You carry the hare back to the cave, the weight light but significant. Inside, the fire burns brighter now, the smell of smoke thicker. The elder greets you with a grunt, taking the hare and beginning the quiet ritual of preparation. Skin, gut, wash, hang. Every motion efficient, every muscle remembering what survival looks like. You sink down near the fire again, rubbing your hands for warmth. The others murmur softly, voices echoing in the stone chamber. One hums under his breath, a low, looping tune that might be a song, or might just be the sound of staying sane. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind in some caves. Archaeologists found bone flutes, hollowed by hand and shaped by breath. Imagine it, music echoing through icy caverns, the sound of wind turned human. Maybe they didn't just endure the cold. Maybe they tried to soften it with melody. You picture yourself carving one now, the rhythm of your breath filling the cave like a heartbeat made of sound. You close your eyes, listening. Between the crackling of the fire and the faint hum, the space feels alive again. It's strange how quickly humans fill silence. A few hours later, a pale light flickers at the entrance. The weather's shifting again. A breeze snakes through the cave, swirling embers across the floor. You shuffle closer to block it, pulling a hide into place over the gap. The fire answers with a sigh, steadying once more. Historians still argue whether these hide door flaps were used mainly for warmth or privacy. Maybe both. Either way, the moment you drop that leather barrier, the difference is instant. The air holds its heat better. The smoke thickens slightly, the world outside muffled into silence. The elder catches your eye and nods approvingly. Her expression says it all in the cold months. Even small acts of cleverness feel like triumphs. You spend the rest of the day near the hearth, mending torn furs with sinew thread. The repetitive motion is oddly soothing. The needle, carved from bone, moves with a rhythm your hands know better than your mind. Around you, life settles into a slow, almost hypnotic pattern. Someone stirs the stew. Someone sharpens a flint blade. Someone hums again. It's evening before you notice how dark the cave has become. The fire's glow paints everyone in shades of amber and shadow. It's the kind of light that hides wrinkles and blurs fear. You look around the circle of faces, and for a moment, the group feels almost modern. Each person leaning toward the same warmth, breathing the same thick, smoky air, eyes reflecting the same flickering gold. The elder begins to tell a story again. This one's older, heavier, about a spirit that lived in the caves long before humans came, watching them, choosing who would survive the winter. Her voice drops low, gravelly, almost a growl. The children lean closer, wide-eyed. You feel a shiver that isn't entirely from the cold. Historians still argue whether such stories were rooted in religious belief or simply practical warnings. Keep the fire burning, stay together, or the dark will swallow you. But sitting here, you think maybe it doesn't matter. The story works because it keeps everyone alert, and maybe that's the only faith that matters when death is as close as the next frost. After the story, the group settles again. The elder hums softly, the tune thin but haunting. You watch her thinking how she's like the cave itself. Old, cracked, but enduring. You lie down once more, the furs heavy, the fire low. Outside, you can hear the faint moan of wind curling around the cliffs. You close your eyes and imagine it as breath. The world itself breathing slowly in its sleep. The air grows thicker, warmer. You can feel condensation collecting on the walls again, small droplets gathering weight until they fall, one by one, into shallow puddles. Drip. Drip. A slow rhythm. You focus on that sound. It becomes your anchor. The small, persistent reminder that the cave is alive in its own way. It leaks, creaks, hums, sighs. It holds you, protects you, consumes you. Somewhere between the steady dripping and the crackle of dying flames, your thoughts blur. You imagine the generations that must have slept in places like this. Thousands of nights, thousands of dreams, all whispering into the same stone. You realize, in a soft, dreamlike way, that the cave doesn't just hold warmth or shelter. It holds memory. The echo of every laugh, every cough, every story told in the dark. You're part of that now. Your breathing slows. The fire flickers once, twice, then steadies into a deep orange glow. The world fades to warmth, and then to nothing. You wake before anyone else this time, your breath misting in the half-darkness. The air feels different. Thicker, warmer somehow with that heavy, smoky weight that clings to every inch of your skin. You blink, disoriented, until you realize what's changed. The fire hasn't gone out. That almost never happens. Its glow fills the cave with a slow, amber pulse, as if the earth itself were breathing beneath you. You sit up, rubbing your eyes. The warmth feels almost decadent, like something you don't deserve. For a moment, you just sit there, letting the heat touch your face. You've spent so long chasing warmth that having it feels unnatural. Someone coughs softly nearby. A small sound, almost polite. You glance over and see the younger woman who's been tending to the fire lately. Her eyes catch the glow like polished flint. She smiles faintly and shrugs. "Didn't want to lose it," she whispers. You nod, understanding more than you can say. Keeping the flame alive through the entire night is no small thing. It means less work in the morning, fewer frozen fingers fumbling with damp tinder. It means hope didn't die while everyone slept. You stretch, your bones cracking like kindling, and shuffle toward the fire. The coals are bright, fat with heat. You toss on a few slender branches, listening to them hiss, spit, and then surrender to flame. Sparks spiral upward like tiny stars, and you wonder, not for the first time, how ancient people thought of fire. A friend, a god, a hungry pet. Historians still argue whether the earliest hearths were treated as sacred spaces or just practical heat sources. Archaeologists have found traces of ritual objects in some, suggesting maybe both were true. You gaze at the orange light dancing on the walls and think, yes, this is holy in its own quiet way. The others begin to stir. A murmur rolls through the room, followed by the soft rustle of hides. The elder grumbles awake, scolding someone for snoring. The children blink sleep from their eyes. Life resumes its slow rhythm, powered by fire and habit. Breakfast comes from the pot that's been simmering all night. A stew so thick with smoke it almost tastes like the cave itself. You drink greedily, ignoring the grit between your teeth. Warmth spreads through your chest like relief given form. When you're done, you step outside for the first time in days. The air hits you like a wall, bright, dry, brutally cold. but beautiful. The sky is a hard, perfect blue, and the snowfield below gleams like crushed glass. A silence so deep it hums fills the valley. You can see faint animal tracks near the frozen creek. Maybe reindeer, maybe something bigger. A few others join you, squinting at the horizon. The cold bites your nose and lips instantly. You pull the fur tighter and look out over the expanse, thinking how small you are, how impossible it is that anything survives out here. You spot something faint in the distance, a line of smoke rising from another ridge. You point. The elder comes forward, peers, squints, and mutters. Could be another group. Could be someone like you, huddled around a fire, cursing the same wind. Historians still argue how often groups of early humans interacted in winter. Did they compete, trade, share stories, or simply stay far enough apart not to risk conflict? The archaeological record is a mix of burnt camps and shared hearths, which feels perfectly human, half cooperation, half chaos. You head back inside, bringing a handful of snow to melt for water. The fire accepts it with a hiss. Steam coils upward, sweet and thin. You breathe it in. The rest of the day passes in small motions. You repair a cracked spearhead, twist sinew into new cord. Rearrange the bedding to shake off the damp. Every task feels deliberate, like an anchor keeping you from slipping into stillness. The elder hums a low rhythm while sharpening a bone needle. It's an old sound. Wordless but steady. The kind of sound that fills time without needing meaning. You hum along after a while, just to feel part of it. A quirky fact floats into your thoughts. Some researchers found that cave suit layers show changes in rhythm, suggesting fires were fed regularly every few hours through the night. In other words, no one ever slept deeply. Survival meant naps, not nights. It explains the constant fatigue that hangs over everyone like fog. You can feel it now. The way exhaustion never fully leaves. It's in your shoulders, your jaw, even your heartbeat. You start thinking maybe the cave itself is tired too. By evening, the temperature dips again. The walls exhale cold. The fire flares as if offended, brightening defiantly. You all shuffle closer, pressing your knees to the heat. Someone suggests telling a story, but everyone's too drained for words. Instead, the elder lifts a small, hollow bone flute from her pouch, the same one you'd seen before, and begins to play. The sound is thin, wobbly, but haunting. It fills the space between the flickers of flame, wrapping the cave in invisible threads of melody. You close your eyes, and suddenly, the world feels bigger again. The cave becomes a cathedral of echoes, and you're inside its pulse. Historians still argue about the purpose of prehistoric music. Some say it was ritual, others say communication, and others think it was boredom's cure. But sitting here, the notes slipping around your ears like soft wind, you decide it's none of those things. It's simply proof that even in the worst cold, humans needed beauty. The elder finishes her song, exhales, and smiles faintly. The children clap, softly, so as not to wake the spirits, they say. The fire answers with a pop, as if in applause. Later, as everyone lies down, the night feels unusually still. You listen to the soft shuffle of breath, the crack of cooling wood, and the endless whisper of snow outside. Your thoughts drift again, to warmth, to memory, to how strange it is that the oldest comfort in the world is also the most fragile. You pull your fur tighter, shift closer to the fire, and watch the embers pulse. Each one looks like an eye, half open, watching over you. You whisper a half-formed thanks to no one in particular. In the slow slide towards sleep, you imagine what dreams looked like here, long before language. Maybe not stories, but sensations, flashes of warmth, hunger, movement. Maybe that's where memory begins, not in thought, but in temperature. You let that idea carry you under, deeper and softer, until the last thing you see is a ribbon of smoke curling upward like a ghost escaping. When you wake again, the snow wall is gone. Not melted, exactly, just collapsed inward during the night, spilling pale heaps across the cave floor. It's brighter than usual, painfully so. The morning sun has found you blazing through the gap like a slow explosion of gold and white. You blink hard, shielding your eyes. The light hurts after so many grey days, but it's a good kind of pain. One that feels like something new is beginning. You can see the shimmer of frost dusting the stone, turning even the soot, black walls into mirrors. The fire, still smouldering low, glows in sympathy. You sit up, stretch, and listen. The others are stirring too. The elder coughs, groans, and mutters something about light thieves and lazy sun gods. The children laugh softly. They've never heard her complain about too much light before. You crawl to the entrance and look outside. The world has changed overnight. The sky is vast and clean, the snow glittering like a sheet of glass. A breeze stirs, but it's not the biting kind. It smells faintly of thaw. For the first time in what feels like forever, you hear something new, the trickle of water. Somewhere, ice is melting. Historians still argue whether early humans noticed the subtle shift in seasons before spring truly came, or whether every warm morning felt like a trick of the sun. But standing there, you know this one is real. The air feels different, lighter. The cave exhales. You step outside, the crusted snow crunching under your feet. The sunlight hits your face like a slow shock. Your breath rises in pale curls, but it doesn't sting your lungs the way it used to. You look up, and for the first time in months, you can see color in the sky. A faint, watery blue. Behind you, the others start emerging one by one. Squinting and stretching, blinking like animals seeing the day after hibernation. The elder shuffles out last, her furs wrapped tightly, eyes narrowed against the glare. Too bright, she mutters, but she doesn't go back in. For a moment, no one speaks. You just stand there together, staring at the valley. The snow's thinning along the ridges, exposing patches of rock and dead grass. It's still winter, but you can feel the edge of it loosening. A quirky fact floats up from your thoughts. In several ancient sites, archaeologists found evidence that people marked this moment. The first thaw, with special hearth fires, even feasts. They burned pine resin for its scent, crushed herbs into fat, and smeared it on stones as offerings. No one knows exactly why, but maybe they were thanking the cold for not killing them. You decide you like that idea. Gratitude, even for suffering, makes survival feel like a story instead of just a fact. You return inside and start rebuilding the fire for a new day. The air's shifting, still smoky, but thinner. You can feel drafts sneaking in now that the snow barrier is gone. You feed the flames carefully, coaxing them to life. The warmth blooms fast, like it's been waiting for an excuse. The elder takes a stick, dips it into a pot of melted fat, and sprinkles it on the burning wood. The flame flares, releasing a sharp, clean smell. For the sun, she says softly, almost to herself. You nod, watching the smoke twist upward. It's beautiful in a raw, simple way. The kind of beauty that doesn't ask to be noticed. The day passes with more movement than you've seen in weeks. The hunters check their traps again. You follow, walking across the crusted snow under a sky so bright it hurts. The valley hums faintly with meltwater, and you notice tiny birds darting between the bare shrubs. Their calls are thin, almost hesitant, as if testing whether it's safe to sing again. You catch a glimpse of your own reflection in a patch of thawed ice. Hollow eyes, cracked lips, hair stiff with soot. But there's something alive in the stare. The kind of stubborn spark that only long winters teach. Historians still argue whether these late winter hunts were practical or symbolic, about replenishing stores, or simply marking the season's change. Either way, you feel something ceremonial in the act of walking through melting snow. It's like stepping from dream into memory. By afternoon, the sky turns a softer shade of grey. The warmth fades a little, but not completely. When you return to the cave, the smell of stew fills the air again. The elder's already stirring it with her carved bone ladle. You settle beside her, helping where you can, adding melted snow, slicing bits of dried meat, scraping the soot from the pot's edge. She glances at you, eyes bright despite the dim light. "You remember last winter?" she asks suddenly. You nod. She chuckles, shaking her head. "Worse than this. Cold ate through the stones. Fire died twice." You smile faintly. "And yet here we are." Her grin is slow but fierce. "Always." You eat together in silence. The stew tastes like smoke, salt, and a little hope. Around you, the fire burns steady, its orange heart pulsing against the cave's dark ribs. Later, after everyone's eaten, you sit near the entrance again. The wind has softened. The air smells faintly of damp earth instead of endless frost. Somewhere beyond the valley, a wolf howls. Not hungry this time, just calling to the open air. Historians still argue whether early humans felt awe or fear at such sounds. Maybe both. But sitting here, you think it sounds like freedom, the world stretching its limbs after a long sleep. The child comes to sit beside you, half hidden under a fur. "Will it get warm now?" he asks. "Eventually," you say, "but not all at once. The cold likes to linger." He nods, solemn, as if you've just told him something ancient and important. Maybe you have. The cave, after all, teaches patience better than any god. You stay like that for a long time. Two quiet figures watching the slow collapse of winter. The moon rises pale and thin above the ridges, throwing silver light over the snow. The fire behind you flickers in rhythm with your breathing. Eventually, the boy dozes off against your side. You lift him gently, carry him back to the sleeping circle, and lay him beside the elder. The two of them look almost the same in the firelight. Small, peaceful, wrapped in furs like mirrored halves of time. You lie down too, stretching your legs, feeling the soft fatigue of a day, lived rather than endured. As your eyes close, you think about how the cave feels different now. Not like a prison, but a memory. You can almost hear the stone whispering with the ghosts of all who slept here before you. The fire pops one last time, scattering sparks that fade before they touch the ground. Sleep takes you easily, this time warm. When you wake again, it's not the cold that greets you. It's a sound you haven't heard in months, dripping. Slow, patient, almost rhythmic. Water finding its courage again. You lie there for a while, eyes closed, listening. It's coming from the cave wall near the entrance, where frost once sealed every crack. Now, rivulets run down the stone, pooling in the ash, soft floor. The world outside is melting, one sigh at a time. You stretch, bones clicking, breath steady. The air has changed. It feels softer, wetter. You can smell the thaw, mud, moss, and something faintly metallic, like stone waking from sleep. You crawl toward the mouth of the cave and peer out. The valley looks bruised and beautiful, half white, half brown. Snow still clings to the shadows, but the slopes are streaked with slush, and the river below is breaking open in jagged, glittering lines. It's chaos, but it's the kind that leads somewhere new. Behind you, the others stir. The elder groans, muttering about the world leaking again. The children laugh. One of them dips a finger into the dripping wall and licks it. You're about to stop her, but the elder waves a hand. Let her. It's clean water. A gift. Historians still argue whether ancient humans truly celebrated spring, or if they just tolerated it as another kind of trouble. After all, melting snow meant floods, slick paths, and predators returning hungry. But you suspect it always felt like a miracle too. You can see it in the faces around you, cautious smiles. The relief of light that doesn't sting. The slow rediscovery of what it means to move without dread. You spend the morning outside. The ground gives under your feet, soft and uneven, smelling of decay and promise. The snow patches hide surprises. Animal bones, forgotten tools, a smooth river stone shaped like a face. You pocket the stone, feeling its chill against your palm. The hunters are already busy repairing spears. The elder sits near the fire, humming something low and ancient, pressing herbs into lumps of fat. The smoke curls upward, carrying a faint sweetness. You remember something she said, once a fire needs to eat to stay kind. You realize she meant more than flame. People, too, must feed their warmth. On food, on stories, on each other. By midday, you venture farther down the valley, where the river is breaking loose. Sheets of ice crash and tumble, their sound deep and wild. You kneel by the edge, watching chunks drift past like ghosts set free. The waters darken fast, and when you touch it, your skin screams from the cold. But it's moving. That's what matters. It's alive again. A quirky fact comes to mind. In several Paleolithic sites, archaeologists found carved stones that might have marked the year's turning, the melting days. Some were buried in fire pits, others left near rivers. Were they calendars, charms, or just bored doodles by someone like you, waiting for winter to finally end? Historians still argue whether such carvings were ritual or boredom. But you like to think they were gratitude, etched in stone. You look up. The sun is higher now, warm enough to make you squint. A few insects hover near the river, trembling in the light. Birds circle lazily overhead. The world is noisy again, but not the kind of noise that drains you. It hums with purpose. When you return to the cave, your furs are damp, but you don't care. The air inside feels less heavy now. You help patch the sleeping area, spreading dry grass where the ground's turned muddy. The elder nods approvingly, though she doesn't say much. She's conserving words, as if speech itself should thaw slowly. By evening, the sky bleeds orange. You sit with the others near the fire, sharing the last of the dried meat, and a handful of winter berries, someone found preserved in ice. They taste sharp and sour, but everyone eats them anyway, just to remember what flavor feels like. The conversation drifts. The younger ones talk about following the river when the paths clear. The hunters argue about where the herds might return. You listen quietly, tracing the rim of your cup with a finger. It's strange, realizing that survival isn't a static thing. It shifts with the season, always moving, always demanding new forms of patience. The elder catches your eye. "You'll go when the snow is gone," she says softly. It's not a question. You nod. And you? "I'll stay," she replies with a small smile. "Saves remember me. You'll find another that forgets you." You want to argue, but something in her tone silences you. She's not sad, just settled, like stone accepting the shape of its erosion. You understand. Some people are the cave. That night, the dripping grows louder. It sounds almost musical now, like the world playing its slow return. You lie on your back, watching droplets fall from the ceiling, catching the firelight as they descend. Each one lands with a soft hiss, vanishing before you can count it. Sleep comes gently, but your dreams are restless. You walk through endless tunnels of melting ice. The air drips around you, cold and shining. You keep hearing laughter, faint and distant, the kind that belongs to no one you know. You reach out, but every shadow melts before you touch it. When you wake, dawn is pale and thin. The fire's low, and the floor is damp where melted snow has crept in overnight. You sit up slowly, bones stiff but less wary. The elder's already awake, stirring a pot of thick soup. She glances at you and says, "The world is dripping clean again." You smile. "Does it stay clean long?" She chuckles, shaking her head. "Never. That's why we keep washing it." The day ahead is grey, quiet, and wet. The cave smells like smoke earth and melting time. You stand at the entrance once more, watching the mist roll through the valley. The world's edges blur. Trees, rocks, river. like a watercolor painting slowly dissolving. You realize then that winter never really leaves. It just hides under the thaw, waiting. The memory of cold clings to everything. Even warmth feels like a fragile trick. But for now, it's enough. You turn back to the cave, where the fire hums softly and the others murmur in their sleep. You lie down, exhale, and close your eyes again. Tomorrow will be wetter, warmer, louder. The snow will vanish for good. The cave will dry and crack and breathe like a living lung. And soon, very soon, you'll have to decide whether to stay with the stone or step into the open air that's calling you home. By the time you wake again, the cave smells of rain. Not the frozen kind that bites through fur and bone, but true rain, heavy and alive, the kind that hits the ground like applause. The sound is everywhere, drumming on the rock face, trickling through cracks, rolling down in fat, confident streams. You blink, disoriented, because you haven't heard this sound in months. It's spring, or whatever passes for it here. The snow's gone, replaced by soft mud and mist. You step toward the entrance, your bare feet squelching through puddles, and peer outside. The world looks raw, naked. Trees glisten black and wet, their bark slick with moss. The river below has swollen, fast and loud, swallowing stones that were bare just days ago. The others are stirring behind you. Someone laughs. An unguarded, startled laugh. The elder mutters something about ski leaking again, but smiles while she says it. For once, her cough is drowned by the storm. You watch as droplets slide off the ledge above the cave mouth, catching the morning light. Every drop looks like glass. The air smells of life, of rot, of everything thawed too fast. Historians still argue whether early humans found rain comforting or terrifying. Some carved its shape into stone. Wavy lines, maybe prayers for water. Others buried food deep in dry alcoves, afraid of what flooding might wash away. But standing here, you understand both instincts. Rain is rebirth and ruin in the same breath. You take a deep inhale. The air feels thicker now, full of sound and scent. Even your breath seems slower, calmer, as if the whole world has softened. Behind you, the fire crackles low, smoke curling through the damp. You turn back and tend it, adding a few dry twigs you'd saved. Steam rises where the rain drips too close, hissing like an annoyed serpent. A small child toddles over and pokes a finger into the puddle forming near the fire pit. The cave is leaking, she says seriously. You laugh. The cave's just crying happy tears. She looks confused, then decides that sounds fine. The elder raises her eyes, watching droplets slide down the walls. The earth remembers its veins, she murmurs. All this water? It's the world's blood waking up. You nod slowly. There's poetry in her words, even if she doesn't mean it that way. The sound of the rain feels like a heartbeat, slow and strong. By midday, the rain turns to mist. You step outside again, careful not to slip. The ground is soft and dark, dotted with the first hints of green. Tiny shoots pushing through the mud. You crouch to touch one, and it bends under your finger, delicate and defiant. A quirky archaeological find drifts through your thoughts in one cave site. Ancient people pressed flowers into the soot walls, literal fossilized petals, still faintly yellow after thousands of years. Were they decorations, or quiet tributes to the return of life? Historians still argue whether those pressed blooms were the first art, or the first calendar. You imagine yourself doing the same, tucking a sprig of green between stones, just to remember this moment. The rebirth of color after so much gray. You spend the afternoon moving between cave and valley, your steps light, your breath steady. Everything drips and glimmers. Birds flit low, their wings flashing silver in the mist. Once, you spot a deer, its coat patchy from winter's end. It stares at you for a long second before bounding into the trees, splashing mud with each leap. You smile. The hunt can wait. Today feels too alive to end with blood. When you return, The others are drying meat near the fire, the smell filling the cave with a sweet, smoky warmth. The elder sits beside the pot, stirring lazily. She hums that same slow tune again, but softer now, like she's not trying to remember it, just letting it exist. You sit across from her, leaning back against the stone. Feels strange. You say quietly, "What does?" She asks, not looking up. The noise. The air. The green. She chuckles, a dry, musical sound. "That's life, fool. You forgot what it sounds like." You grin. "Maybe I did." The night that follows isn't silent anymore. The rain stops, but the world doesn't rest. Frogs croak from the marsh below, and something, maybe a fox, yelps in the distance. You can hear the river roaring louder now, unburdened by ice. The firelight flickers against wet walls, turning droplets into moving stars. You lie down near the entrance, wanting to hear it all. The elder mumbles from her corner, half dreaming, "Don't sleep too close to the wind. It steals warmth." You smile in the dark. "It's all right. I've got enough tonight." You close your eyes. For a long time, you just listen. To rain dripping from the cave's mouth. To wind coming through the valley. To the sound of your own breathing syncing with the pulse of the thawing earth. Somewhere deep inside, the cave sighs, stone settling after months of frost. You feel it in your chest, a slow, heavy exhale. Historians still argue whether early people ever saw caves as living beings, as guardians rather than shelters. But you're sure they did. You can feel the walls breathe when you do, hear them hum when rain hits just right. You've spent too many nights wrapped in their ribs, not to believe they have hearts. The fire pops softly, sending sparks toward the roof. You watch them rise and fade, little constellations that last only seconds. You think about how short each life is, each flame, each season, each breath. And yet, somehow, the pattern always continues. The rain returns. The grass grows back. The cave keeps holding on. You drift into sleep with that thought. The rain starts again just before you fade completely, whispering over stone and fur, soft as memory. When morning comes, you wake to sunlight again. Real sunlight, bright and gold, pooling across the cave floor. The air smells like moss and smoke, and something sweet you can't name. You stretch, smile, and let the warmth soak into your skin. The long winter dream is ending. By the next morning, the cave feels almost unrecognizable. The air is light now, playful, full of scent and movement. You can smell damp earth, smoke, and that faint sweetness of grass waking up under the melting frost. The once echoing silence has softened into a quiet hum of life returning. Drips have slowed to trickles. The walls no longer glisten with frost, but with the sheen of new moisture, like perspiration on living skin. You rise and stretch, blinking into the light streaming from the entrance. The valley below looks reborn. Green patches spread wider every day, threading through the brown like veins of color. The river runs quick and clear now, and if you listen closely, you can hear insects buzzing for the first time in months. Behind you, the others begin their small morning noises. The shuffle of fur, the low voices, the hiss of a rekindled fire. The elder hums as she tosses handfuls of herbs into the pot, her movements unhurried, ceremonial almost. "The world's awake," she murmurs, as if she's telling the fire itself. You nod. So are we. Historians still argue whether early humans actually migrated at the first sign of spring, or if they waited until game returned and paths dried. But in your bones, you can feel the shift. The season is turning, and so must you. The cave that once saved you now feels smaller, heavier. The air presses with stories that have already ended. You step outside and lift your face to the breeze. It's cool but not cruel anymore. The light has changed too. Less brittle, more golden, as though the sun's finally decided to stay. The valley hums with motion. Birds gather twigs, their wings flashing in the light. Tiny shoots push up between rocks, bold and foolish. You crouch to touch one, soft as breath, trembling under your finger. For months, everything you touched was hard or frozen. Now, even the world feels tender. You walk down to the river. Its banks are muddy, but you don't care. You kneel, cup your hands, and drink. The water burns with cold, but it's the kind that wakes, not wounds. You drink again, greedily this time. It tastes of stone and life, and things you don't have words for. When you return to the cave, you find the elder sitting by the fire, staring into the smoke. "You'll go soon?" she says quietly, without looking up. "Yes," you answer, before the river rises more. She nods. "Good." The cave keeps only what it needs. You glance around at the walls that sheltered you. The soot-stained ceiling, the dark corners, the faint scratches left from months of scraping, chipping, mending. You'll miss it. But you also feel that restless pull of open ground, the need to walk until your legs forget the rhythm of stillness. A quirky fact drifts through your mind. Some caves show signs of ceremonial, farewell fires. Small hearths deliberately extinguished, sometimes buried under stones before groups moved on. Historians still argue whether that was superstition or gratitude. But as you look at your own flickering flame, you understand the impulse. You'd want to thank the darkness that kept you alive too. The elder's voice interrupts your thoughts. "When you leave, take one stone," she says. "Not to remember me, but to remember warmth." You smile faintly. "You think I'll forget?" "Everyone does," she says. When summer comes, the cold becomes a story. The day passes in slow rhythm. The hunters check the last traps. The children chase each other near the entrance, shrieking with laughter. The sound echoes against the stone, a bright, fragile music. The elder hums her song again, low and steady. You help her pack herbs into small bundles, tying them with sinew. She hands you one when you finish. For smoke. Keeps the air kind. Outside, the sun begins to sink, painting the cave's walls with gold. The shadows stretch long, reaching toward the back, where you all slept through those endless frozen nights. The fire crackles and spits, the smoke curling like a ribbon toward the dark. You sit by the entrance and watch the sky change. The clouds drift slow and soft, pink fading to lavender. The first stars blink through, tiny and shy. The valley glows faintly under the twilight, the river a moving ribbon of silver. The elder joins you, moving slower than before. She sits beside you without speaking, hands folded in her lap. Together, you watch the light fade. For a while, it feels like time itself is breathing between you. After a long silence, she says, "You'll dream of the cave." You nod. "I already do." She smiles. "Good. Then you'll remember how to survive the next cold." You don't answer. There's nothing to say that wouldn't sound like goodbye. When night fully settles, the others drift to sleep one by one. You stay awake, feeding the last of the dry wood into the fire, watching the embers pulse like a heartbeat. The air feels thick with memory, each crackle a whisper of night survived, each flicker a thank you. You stand, step outside, and look back one last time. The cave mouth glows orange in the dark, like an enormous lantern half buried in the hill. Smoke curls into the stars. The air is cool, but not cruel. You crouch, pick up a small stone from near the entrance, smooth, warm from the day's sun. You slip it into your pouch. Feel its weight settle against your side. You whisper, "Thank you." The cave says nothing, but the wind shifts through its throat, low and soft, almost like a sigh. When you return inside, the fire is low, nearly gone. You lie down on your fur mat, listening to the faint dripping deep within the stone, the rustle of someone turning in sleep, the slow rhythm of breathing all around you. The sound is no longer desperate, it's peaceful, like waves lapping a quiet shore. You close your eyes. The smell of smoke clings to your hair and skin, the scent of safety and endings. Outside, The first crickets of spring begin their patient chorus. In the morning, you'll step into the world again. You'll walk until the cave becomes just another shape in the hills. But for now, you let the warmth hold you one last time. The darkness presses close, gentle as fur. Sleep comes easily, carried on the hum of the river and the soft sigh of melting stone. When you open your eyes again, the air is full of bird song. You lie still for a moment, listening. The sound feels strange, so many tones, so much motion. You'd forgotten that mornings could begin like this, with light that doesn't hurt and sound that doesn't warn. You rise slowly, stretching your arms until your joints crack. The air feels almost warm now. The dampness has turned from chill to comfort. The smell of smoke earth and sunlit moss fills the cave. It's the smell of ending and of beginning. You glance around. Most of the others are already awake, gathering the last of what they'll carry. Furs rolled tight, tools strapped in bundles, embers sealed in clay pots for the next fire. The elder sits near the back, silent, watching. Her eyes are distant, but not sad. Just knowing. You kneel beside her. "You won't come?" You ask softly. She shakes her head, a small smile creasing her face. "This cave and I, we've known too many winters together. It won't remember anyone else." You nod. The cave seems to approve of her choice. The walls hum faintly with the morning's warmth, as though the stone itself is breathing easier. Historians still argue whether people stayed with their winter caves year after year, returning to the same dark shelters until they became shrines, or whether they moved on and never looked back. You suspect both are true. Some built memories into stone, others left before memory could harden. You stand, feeling the weight of the small stone in your pouch. The one you promised to take. It thuds softly against your hip as you walk toward the entrance. Outside, the world glows. The valley is lush and dripping with life. Water threads everywhere, winding through grass, feeding moss and mushrooms. The river runs fat and silver, singing louder than you remember. The air hums with flies, bees, and the soft wing beats of early butterflies. You squint into the light. It's not the brutal glare of snow anymore, but the kind that wraps everything in gold. The kind that makes even the coldest stone look warm. The others begin to move, descending carefully down the slope. Their voices blend with the wind. Soft laughter, low calls, the muffled clatter of tools. You follow, but you turn once to look back. The cave mouth is darker now against the bright hills. Smoke no longer curls from its throat. It looks smaller than you remember, just a shadow in the rock, and yet you feel it watching, quietly, the way an old friend might watch from a distance, not needing to say goodbye. You raise a hand in thanks. The wind shifts, brushing your face like a cool palm. The path down is slick with dew and rich mud. Your feet sink deep, each step squelching softly. The air tastes alive. The wind carries scents of wet grass, animal musk, and the faint sweetness of early blossoms. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind. Some archaeologists believe early humans marked spring journeys by collecting scents, bundling aromatic plants, resins, and herbs to carry the memory of each place. Historians still argue whether that was for ritual, healing, or just comfort. You think it was all three. You reach down, pluck a sprig of wild mint, and crush it between your fingers. The smell lingers sharp and clean. You tuck it behind your ear. By midday, the group reaches the river crossing. The water runs high, its surface flashing like glass. The youngest hesitate. One throws a pebble, watching it disappear instantly. You step forward, testing the current. It's strong, but not cruel. Cold, but no longer deathly. The thaw has tamed it. For now, you wade through, legs braced against the pull. The shock of the cold steals your breath. But it also wakes something deep inside. You reach the far bank laughing, gasping, shaking water from your hair. Behind you, the others follow, shouting and splashing. Even the elders' laughter echoes faintly from the cave far above, carried down by the wind. When the last person crosses, you look back one more time. The cave is barely visible now, hidden by the ridge and distance. But you know exactly where it is. You can still feel the weight of its air in your lungs, the rough warmth of its walls against your back. The journey ahead will be long. More valleys, more cold nights, more fires to build. But something has changed. You've seen the world sleep and wake again, and you understand now that even stone dreams, even darkness can protect. The sky grows softer as evening falls, turning the river bronze. The group sets up camp beneath a cliff, open to the stars. You build a small fire, coaxing it from the ember you carried. The flame takes quickly, dancing bright and eager. As night descends, you lie back on the damp earth, staring up at the sky. It's vast and glittering, and new all over again. The fire crackles beside you, the air cool on your skin. Somewhere nearby, a night bird calls, slow and haunting. You feel the cave still within you, not as a place, but as a rhythm. The steady breathing of survival, the sound of dripping water. The whisper of stone. You know you'll carry that silence forever, tucked somewhere deep where no wind can reach. You close your eyes and let the warmth of the fire slide into your bones. For the first time in a long time, you don't feel the cold waiting behind your eyelids, just the steady hum of the earth turning beneath you. The stars blink slowly, and the wind moves through the grass like a lullaby. The cave sleeps now, and so do you. Wind down 300 words. And now, as the fire fades and the river hums below, your body loosens into that slow, heavy calm that only long journeys bring. The world feels enormous again, soft and unhurried, the edges of sound blurring into quiet. You can almost hear the cave's breath across the miles, still whispering, still holding the echo of your warmth in its ribs. You inhale through your nose, slow and deep. The air carries smoke and soil, and the ghost of snow long gone. You exhale through your mouth, letting every last trace of the cold drift away. Each breath becomes slower, heavier, as if you're sensing with the pulse of the earth itself. The ground beneath you is cool but steady. The fire beside you is only embers now, glowing faintly, like distant stars. The night presses close but kindly. Even the darkness feels soft, a blanket drawn over the world. Somewhere in the distance, rain begins again, gentle, rhythmic, patient. It falls on stone, on soil, on everything that has waited so long to feel it. You smile, eyes half closed, knowing that even the coldest winters eventually melt into this quiet sound. You've walked through ice, through hunger, through silence, and found yourself still breathing on the other side. The cave will remember your warmth, and you will remember its patience. That's all survival really is, mutual memory between you and the world. So, let the night take you now. Let your breathing match the rhythm of dripping water and wind. Let your muscles soften until even thought feels like snow melting from stone. Sleep deeply, traveler, the world is warm again.